Gaius the Sage is a legendary sorcerer known as the strongest sage in the world. In this fantastical world, all mages are born with one of four crests that dictate their magical abilities: creation, power, rapid firing, and close combat. Gaius has achieved the highest possible level in his Crest of Creation, making him the strongest sage ever. However, he is still unsatisfied because he could be even more powerful if he had the fourth crest of close combat. Since it's impossible to change the crest you're born with, Gaius decides to reincarnate with the fourth crest thousands of years later. I wish I could just reincarnate like that whenever things go wrong. He is reborn as Matthias Hildesheimer in a small, peaceful town. He heads to the capital at the young age of 12 to enroll at the second academy. He is taking in the vastness and beauty of the capital when he overhears a girl named Alma yelling at a blacksmith inside a weapon shop. He enters the shop to eavesdrop further, like a creep. Basically, Alma's friend's magical sword broke when she was trying to protect Alma from a monster. She feels really guilty about it and needs to get it fixed for her friend since the second academy's entrance exam is on the next day. However, the blacksmith doesn't know how to enchant a sword with magic, so he refuses the job and recommends she find someone else. Sensing her desperation, Matthias butts in and claims he can handle the enchantment if the smith makes the sword. The smith finds it hard to believe that someone with the fourth crest can pull something like that off. You see, from Gaius' time thousands of years ago to the present era, the most powerful crest of close combat has somehow become regarded as the weakest crest, and is now more commonly known as the crest of failure. How ironic. Alma, however, has a good gut feeling about Matthias and gives him the Magistone to infuse with the sword. While waiting for the blacksmith to forge the sword, her friend enters the shop. Both Matthias and the friend immediately get a crush on each other. Blushing, she introduces herself as Luria Abendrath. Shortly after, the blacksmith finishes crafting the sword. Matthias sets it down on the table in front of them and takes the Magistone. With just a simple touch of the sword, he enchants it with enhanced fortitude and sunder steel to make it sturdy and light enough for Luria to use it easily in combat. All of them are in disbelief over how quickly he enchants it, especially without reciting any incantations. Luria decides to test it with some practice swings, but she ends up slicing the table cleanly in half by merely touching the table with the sword's tip. Looks like the enchantment worked. The next day, Matthias meets up with Luria and Alma to take the practical entrance exam for Second Academy. Luria passes the swordsmanship part of the test with flying colors, thanks to her new sword. After hearing Matthias was the one to enchant it, the captain of the Knights Order of Guile decides to take his exam. If he can handle Guile's attacks well, the captain will vouch for his admission regardless of his other test scores. Matthias happily takes up the challenge and disarms Guile in an instant. Dumbfounded, the captain surrenders. Next is the casting exam, where each candidate has to hit 5 targets with 5 arrow, a type of incanted magic. Incanted magic is a method that can be used by anyone to cast magic by the recitation of specific words. Objectively, it's an inferior method because it leaves the caster vulnerable to attack mid-chant and has a poor conversion rate of the caster's energy to the spell's power. However, for reasons Matthias doesn't understand, incanted magic is considered the ideal magic for combat, and the Crest of Creation, which is highly compatible with incanted magic, is also known as the Crest of Glory in this era. In his turn, Matthias decides to employ another strategy. His Crest of Close Combat, now known as Crest of Failure, is best for wordless chants and has a very small range. Matthias casts a wordless spell that hits all 5 targets at once but also damages most of the school grounds due to the lack of precision in his magic. Everybody spectates in awe as they witness the power of wordless chants for the first time. Anyway, all 3 of them pass the entrance exam and becomes classmates. The next day, they attend the opening ceremony, where the Second Academy's headmaster, Edgeworth, delivers a very short speech to encourage the students and then picks out Matthias from the audience to tell him to drop by his office. 1,000 thoughts rush into Matthias' head, and he prepares himself for the worst. To his surprise, the headmaster praises him for his prodigious skills in swordsmanship and wordless spells. He confirms Matthias' suspicions that wordless magic is a lost craft, and that the First Royal Academy has systematically removed wordless magic from everything. Headmaster Edgeworth, who wishes to revive it, requests Matthias to teach the students wordless casting in time for the inter-school competition, so that they can prove the power of wordless techniques. Matthias demonstrates his abilities with wordless casting and then starts teaching the students basic techniques. Soon enough, most of them get the hang of it. The day of the inter-school competition arrives a month later. Matthias senses the presence of someone with 10 times more magical power than him, equal to demon-level power. He walks into the arena to see 3 First Academy opponents. He immediately recognizes that the one in the middle is actually a demon in disguise and is the source of the magic power he sensed earlier. The demon even has a fake crest to make himself appear human. Really the full package. The two fighters on either side attack first, but their incantations are too slow, and Matthias takes them down with a wordless spell. Only the demon student is left standing, who is so taken aback that he activates a spell before pretending to chant the incantation. The audience notices this and wonders what on earth is going on. Matthias slashes his sword at the demon, forcing him to fly upward and retaliate with wordless magic. He touches the demon with his sword while casting spell Shatter to reveal the demon's true appearance. With that, Matthias exposes how demons infiltrated the First Academy thousands of years ago and systematically denounced the powerful crest of close combat over time, so that humans, their eternal enemy, would become reliant on the weaker form of incanting magic. As the students try to evacuate, the demon tries to flee by flying away, but Matthias cuts one of his wings before he takes flight and defeats the demon. Matthias is invited to the king's palace along with Headmaster Edgeworth to reward his incredible feat of defeating a demon. Matthias requests the right to use all the resources found in the kingdom's dungeons. In Gaius' time, dungeons were the most valuable asset of a kingdom as they contained precious magical ores and monster artifacts. However, since magical knowledge has waned now, nobody knows their true worth. The king grants him access and then asks him for his opinion on the sudden disappearance of the kingdom's chosen ones, a title given to exceptionally strong mages. Matthias deduces that all of them were demons in disguise, and they chose to flee once the student in First Academy was exposed. Since their cover is blown, Matthias believes they will be preparing for a full-blown attack on the kingdom and about to gain control. His best guess is that they have about 3 months until this attack. The king gets anxious, but Matthias assures him that all that's needed is a magical barrier to protect the city, which can be made within a month by the united efforts of the Second Academy students. He also recommends that they be taught wordless magic. His Majesty agrees with his ideas and appoints him the kingdom's leader for the fight against the demons. Later, Matthias goes to the treasury to look for divine-level magical artifacts needed for the preparation of the barrier. A particular sword piques his interest, and upon analyzing the magic patterns enchanted on it, he recognizes it as one of the magical swords he made in his previous life. He takes it as well as a blue pendant he made in his previous life, which has the ability to increase the gains from experience points. After searching the entire treasury, he still needs more items and decides to go to the dungeons to look for them. At school, he invites Alma and Luri to go to the dungeons with him as a party. However, they hesitate to go because they think they'll hold him back. Alma says she was always good at archery but was told to give it up because it doesn't pair well with incanted magic. However, she is no good with a sword. Matthias has an easy fix to her problem. He takes a bow and enchants an arrow with simple wordless magic, causing the target he hits with it to blow up and proving archery and be a valuable combat skill. Moreover, Alma has the crest for rapid firing, which will naturally make her highly compatible with magical archery. He also reassures an excited Luri that he will help her improve at enchantments to take advantage of her Crest of Creation, the crest in his previous life that he chose to discard by reincarnating. Now motivated, the girls agree to join his party. The trio enters the dungeon, where Matthias uses the first floor to train Alma and Luri. The monsters differ from floor to floor, but the first floor typically has non-threatening types. He finds a small crab-like monster and lays it on a pile of rocks as a target for Alma to practice magical archery. She successfully enchants the arrow and hits the monster on the first try. Next, he asks her to hold the arrow for longer before releasing it and to concentrate on the trajectory of the arrow. She follows his instructions and releases it, after which she spots another monster on the ground. This causes the arrow to change its course mid-flight and hit the monster. Matthias explains that this is the thread-guided enchant and that Alma should practice this until she can hit multiple monsters with just one arrow. Excited to master her new move, she goes off to explore the first floor of the dungeon on her own and retrieve magistones from the monsters she kills to help build the barrier. Once she's gone, Matthias begins his enchantment lessons for Luri. The first essential learning for an enchanter is to know how to make a weapon. Matthias disintegrates one of the dungeon's plain-looking walls, saying that all of them are a rich source of ores. He teaches her how to extract ores from the raw material and purify them into pure metals and minerals. She successfully extracts pure mithril and iron from the raw material herself. By the time Alma returns with a bunch of magistones, Luri already knows the basics of making and enchanting swords. Happy with their progress, Matthias decides they should hit the 10th floor to test everything they've learned. Alma and Luri breeze through the monsters by working together. Alma attacks most of the monsters and Luri provides support by making arrows for her. However, the real test begins when a ferocious killer dog arrives. Alma misses it the first few times and the monster is about to pounce on her, but Luri saves her by casting a firewall between them. Alma regains composure and hits its foot and then its neck, killing it. Matthias praises them for their quick progress and good teamwork and builds a safe area for them to rest in. In the meantime, he will go to the 25th floor to retrieve the adamantite ore needed for the barrier. After hearing this, Alma is in disbelief because the furthest anyone has gone is the 23rd floor, which was the 30-man party led by Gaius, god of magic. Matthias gets confused over the person having the name Gaius, but chalks it up to coincidence. He goes down to the deeper floors until he finds rocks containing adamantite. He suddenly detects the presence of a strong monster and guesses it must be the floor boss. Considering it his first test with the Crest of Close Combat, he charges toward the aura. He clears the path of any obstructions for the monster to come to him, but senses it coming from the back and narrowly dodges it. The monster is an arc serpent, an aggressive monster with powerful lunges and a venomous bite that can even corrode rock. He faces it head-on, but his sword barely makes a dent in its tough scales. Finally, he crushes a magistone to release a cloud of magical energy that he gathers in his blade to produce a powerful strike that obliterates the serpent. With the dead monster in tow, the party leaves the dungeon and goes to one of the city's guilds to sell the head of the monster and magistone. Even though the magistone from the monster is bigger than any the city has seen, it's not big enough for Matthias' barrier. The guild gives them a big fortune of 750 gold coins for the goods, which Matthias splits evenly among the three of them. While chatting and walking around town, he senses two demons going towards the academy. One of the demons is relatively weak, while the other is stronger than the one he faced in the inter-high competition. They plan to intercept the demons before they reach the academy, with Matthias facing the stronger one while the two girls deal with the weaker one. Matthias attacks first, but it doesn't work because he doesn't have enough magic to defeat them. So instead he just uses the demon's spell by taking control of it. He draws the demons downward until they are close enough for Alma to hit the weaker demon. She uses enchanted arrows that slow them down. Annoyed, the weaker demon splits up with the other and diverts his attention to the other two. The stronger demon casts a wide-range spell that's impossible to dodge. However, Matthias breaks it by casting a spell at its weak spot. The demon is taken aback because it's the first time in his lifetime that a human has beaten that move. Matthias uses his countless combat experience from his previous life to slash the demon with his sword. The demon decides to retreat for now, but Matthias casts an occlusion orb on him, which turns the magical energy of a host against them, causing the demon to become incapacitated. As a last measure, he tries to cast a demon-exclusive spell that sacrifices his life to summon a horde of monsters, but Matthias expects it and stops it. With no other options left, the demon accepts his defeat. Meanwhile, Alma and Luri have been buying time by continuously hitting the weaker demon with arrows and using his recovery time to draw back. Once Matthias is done dispatching his demon, he goes to aid them. After the demon sees his stronger accomplice has been defeated, he makes the smart decision to run away. Since Matthias can't make the flight up to him, Alma fires an arrow that slices one of his wings, causing him to lose some height. Matthias slashes the other wing, forcing the demon to fall down to the ground. The next day, the king invites the three to the palace to praise them and grant their wishes in return for their brave deed. Matthias asks for more dungeons again, while Alma and Luri accept money rewards. While the king rambles about some useless stuff, Matthias gets up and demands the imposter in the courtroom reveal themselves. When nobody appears, he casts a spell at a spot in the ceiling, and a scream is heard which the king recognizes as Elhart's, a former chosen one. He explains that the demons set up a magical interface spell there, allowing them to spy on the courtroom from a long range. He's even able to pinpoint the coordinates of their hideout, which turns out to be in a village that the demons destroyed years before. Unfortunately, the village is too far for them to make the trip in a reasonable amount of time, and Matthias isn't strong enough yet to use teleportation magic well. He thinks of another method of getting there, but keeps it a surprise from Alma and Luri, who he drags up to the mountains. They are petrified to see a living, breathing dragon, but Matthias intends on using it as their means of transport. He tells them to stand back while he negotiates with it. This dragon is Iris the Darkest Dragon, a dragon he had fought in his previous life, but had since become allies with after she surrendered. Iris doesn't recognize him at first and orders him to leave her domain, or she will burn him to a crisp. He continues walking toward her, so she casts a dragon breath spell. Matthias dissolves it by hitting its weak spot and reveals that he is Gaius Resurrection in dragon speak. Once she realizes it's him, she immediately apologizes and begs for mercy. He assures her that he's only here to ask for her help, but Iris says she can't fly anymore because of her tattered wings. She explains that after Gaius disappeared, one of the giant magical reactors in a human kingdom exploded, leading to other reactor explosions, setting the humans back to the Stone Age. This explains why humans have lost all their progress in magic. Matthias uses enchantment magic to salvage her wings enough to do the job, but it isn't perfect because the Crest of Creation is ideal for enchantments. After that, they switch to human language for Alma and Lurie to understand. Delighted, Iris takes her first flight in 5,000 years to take the party to their destination. Soon enough, they reach the village and Matthias finds the house where Elhart is hiding in. Nobody is to be seen in the house when they enter because Elhart uses a concealment spell to make himself invisible. However, they find his position by detecting his magical energy and Matthias undoes his concealment spell. Elhart goes on the attack, but Matthias keeps dodging his moves while Alma throws arrows at him continuously. Elhart thinks of the arrows as a mere nuisance until he notices his movements getting slower and slower. Turns out the arrows Alma was using were enchanted by Lurie with Magitoxin, which drains a demon of its magical energy. Pissed that a group of tiny humans are beating him, he uses Atrocify, a demon spell that greatly boosts his strength, but will take his life once all his magic is used. Matthias uses an illusion spell to trick the demon into attacking a projection of Alma and Lurie, delivering a huge dose of Magitoxin in mist form. Alma shoots a final arrow at his head, and Elhart is defeated. After that, he tells Alma and Lurie to wait for him in the sky with Iris while he fights a much stronger opponent. Once they're at a safe distance, he crushes 3 Magistones to release their energy, forcing the mist demon he sensed earlier to materialize. They begin fighting, and the demon cuts Matthias' arm right off. However, this was Matthias' plan all along. He cast a Restore and Analysis spell on his arm before the fight. This allows him to rejoin his arm and gain information on the demon's magic. This allows him to dodge all of his moves and inch closer to the demon, at which point he gashes the demon's hand with his sword. Feeling threatened, the demon casts a spell similar to Atrocify, but which won't kill him afterward. Having analyzed his magic already, Matthias easily nullifies it and all his other spells. The cut that Matthias made on the demon's hand is also enchanted, and it starts absorbing all the magical energy around them. He crushes a Magistone, causing all its magical energy to rush into the demon's body, leading to an explosion. The explosion reveals a dragon vein pillar, a strong source of power that the demons were intentionally hiding in the abandoned village. Matthias guesses that they were planning to use it to unleash a horde of thousands of monsters on the capital, but the explosion has luckily steered its target several miles away from the city, buying them time to return and make preparations for the attack. The party returns to the academy with Iris in human form so Matthias can request for her to become a student. The headmaster agrees to let her join as long as she passes the entrance exam with a score of 47 out of 50. Not yet accustomed to human societal norms, she glamorously fails the written exam. In the practical swordsmanship exam, she takes on Guile the Knight. Still clumsy in her new body, she drops her sword and goes to pick it up, which is when Guile attacks her. She casually stops his swing by grabbing the sword with her bare hands and then swings her sword like a baseball bat, sending Guile flying into the roof of a building. Next is the magic practical exam, where she has to hit all 5 targets. Iris charges up her spell, which Matthias predicts will be too strong and makes a barrier against it. When she finally releases it, the whole school ground is obliterated, including the 5 targets. Mission failed successfully. The headmaster has no choice but to accept a student with unbelievable calamity-level magic. Second Academy is lagging behind in collecting the ores required for the barrier, as most of the enchantment-specialized Crest of Creation students are enrolled at the First Royal Academy. The 2 academies have a long history of animosity, making it almost impossible to employ the arrogant First Academy's headmaster's help. As expected, the headmaster refuses to acknowledge Second Academy's proof of strength from the inter-high competition and considers them too lowly to help. Matthias suggests having another competition, with either side sending as many participants as they wish and the loser doing whatever the winner asks. The First Academy headmaster agrees only on the condition that Matthias stays out of it. He agrees to those terms. On the day of the First Academy goes all out by sending a large group of their best Crest of Creation students, while Second Academy sends only 5 students, none of whom bear the Crest of Creation. Expecting an easy win, the arrogant headmaster tells them to begin. All the First Academy students begin incanting a spell, but the chant is so long that the 5 students easily kick all their butts with wordless magic. The king, who is secretly watching from the top, arrests the First Academy for treason as he is still making his students practice incanted magic despite his order to convert to wordless magic. With him out of the way, the king commands the First Academy students to help the Second Academy in their efforts and to pursue an education in wordless magic. The transition occurs smoothly, with the First Academy students happily cooperating. Looks like they hated their headmaster too. While the students mine and gather mithril from the dungeons, Matthias takes his party and Iris deeper into the dungeons to look for a monster that will give them a 60-centimeter diameter magistone to form the barrier's core. He also uses this expedition to test out whether Iris can adapt to her new body and become a good fit in their party. He decides to summon a strong beast by using a magistone. He asks Iris to infuse magic into the stone slowly, but Iris' definition of slow is way different, and she ends up summoning a dragon more powerful than Matthias had intended. Iris distracts the dragon by cussing out in dragon speak and throwing occasional punches at it. Meanwhile, Matthias plants multiple casting circles around the dragon. Once he's ready, he tells Iris to provoke the dragon into casting dragon's breath. Her teasing works, and the dragon casts it while Iris tries to run away. Matthias activates the casting circles, which produce a powerful spell that inverts the direction of the dragon's breath and inflicts it on the dragon itself. The breath directly hits the dragon and incinerates it into ashes. Iris brings them the large Magistone. Now sure that she is a valuable asset, Matthias invites her to join their party. He trains her to use her human body by practicing maneuvering around on uneven ground while protecting a shell from Alma's arrows. He also gets Luri to level up by making new equipment so that she can eventually make him a good sword. Once she gets the hang of enchanting multiple spells into a weapon, she makes new ones for each party member. The weapons are strong enough to pulverize stone. It seems that all is going according to plan for Matthias. His party is progressing rapidly, more and more people are adopting wordless magic, and the barrier will soon be made to protect the kingdom from demons. Once everything is completed, he plans to leave the city to further his own agenda. The day of constructing the barrier finally arrives. Matthias detects a large magical presence above the second academy and determines that the demons plan on attacking the academy using a teleportation technique called Magirode before the barrier is made. However, his hands are filled with casting the barrier, so he asks Alma and Luri to buy him time. As anticipated, a demon appears from the portal and attacks all the students with a powerful fire spell. The students make a magical shield to defend themselves while Luri tries to conjure a casting circle. All of her attempts fail until she's down to the last Magistone. Seeing all of her classmates trying their best to protect her until she finishes, the enchantment fills her with motivation, and she successfully crafts the magical arrow she wants. Alma shoots it at the demon, piercing him through the chest. In his moment of weakness, the students use a spell to defeat him. However, more demons start pouring out of the portal. It looks like a hopeless situation for the humans, but Matthias waltzes into the scene after finishing the barrier preparations. He single-handedly defeats all the demons and all the students cheer him on. Once the demons are taken care of, Matthias activates the barrier by putting the last Magistone in place. A beautiful iridescent dome surrounds the kingdom, protecting the people from danger. However, their job isn't over yet. Remember the Dragon Vein Pillar? The monsters summoned by it have finally arrived near the kingdom, and the students must get rid of them before they attack the nearby villages. The students take care of the first wave of demons, but Matthias' party steps in to wipe out the second wave of stronger demons. The final challenge is the Void Eater, a type of monster that grows by devouring other monsters. Hardly a challenge though, because OP Matthias actually feeds it Magistones to make it grow even more, so that they can reap better resources from it when they kill it. Sure enough, Matthias takes it down with a few slashes of his enchanted sword and cuts its head off. Now that Matthias has taken care of all the immediate threats to the kingdom, he wishes to leave the academy to find more Dragon Vein Pillars. The headmaster offers to keep him in the student records as a special scholarship student so that he can use the school's help if he ever runs into trouble. He also extends the scholarship to Matthias' party members when they decide to join him on his adventures. The students bid them farewell, and the four part ways with the academy. Their first destination is the Melkia Dungeons, but Matthias is shocked to learn that an adventurer's city had established itself above the dungeons since he disappeared. However, the city is bleak and almost empty when they arrive. A magical lamppost near them lights up, but it gives out weird magic signatures. Matthias realizes it is powered directly by the Dragon Vein instead of the typical Magistone. A fruit vendor warns them to stay back as they explode often and are responsible for several deaths in the city. Sure enough, the lamppost suddenly bursts in front of their eyes. The man explains that they used to use Magistones before, but the current lord has prohibited their use in the city as they are its most valuable export product. Moreover, he has sent most of the adventurers to the 10th floor of the dungeon to face a powerful monster, which is why the city looks so vacant. Matthias decides their first course of action should be to go to the guild when he sees a notice that says everyone who wants to go to the dungeons needs a permit. However, when they ask for permits at the guild, the receptionist advises against it, saying that all those who have permits essentially become the Lord's lapdogs and need to do whatever dangerous mission the Lord wishes for them to do whenever he wants them to do it. Unfazed, the party still asks for the permits. Before they can begin the application process, a woman frantically enters the guild and asks if there's anyone who knows how to use healing magic, as a large number of adventurers have come back severely wounded. Most of the healers have been kicked out by the current lord because he considers them a waste of money. Matthias volunteers without hesitation. He analyzes everybody's magical energies to determine the severity of their injuries and places numbered tablets in the order of severity of their injuries. He plans to heal them in descending order of their severity with the help of his party. However, the medics try to shoo him away because they can't afford to risk losing adventurers by the hands of some kid with the crest of failure. Matthias proves his competence by healing the most gravely injured adventurer. This shuts them up real quick. Matthias requests them to work with him to save all the adventurers. With all their combined efforts, they are able to heal every single adventurer. After the main medic thanks Matthias, Matthias asks him about the circumstances of the previous lord's death. The medic says that the previous lord had died suddenly in his sleep, and nobody knows the exact cause of death. Matthias speculates that demons must have killed the lord and one of them has taken up the position. After settling into a room, he writes a letter to the headmaster to be forwarded to the king, laying down the details of what is happening in Melkia. He uses a decoy letter and a special box with a false bottom and other magical concealments to deliver the message because he suspects mail sent out from Melkia must be inspected before being sent. The next day, the party enters the dungeons for a quick survey. They return with the skull of a monster that the girls and Iris took down with her OP dragon breath to sell to the guild. The reception is shocked beyond her wits because it's the strong monster that injured and killed so many of the city's adventurers. She says they will only get their reward once the Lord verifies it and writes a letter to him to report the kill, saying that the girls are super strong while the guy is a mere healer who doesn't get involved in fights. The party sells the rest of their kills for money to afford a meal. The Lord dispatches a couple of thugs to take the party down after reading the letter. Matthias detects them and is glad to find out his plan worked. He uses a telepathy spell to tell the girls they are being tailed. They confront the goons directly, and the goons capture Matthias as a hostage, threatening to kill their weakest member if they don't agree to serve the Lord. On Matthias' signal, Iris defeats them all without any weapons, knocking them out cold. He puts tracking and demon-detecting spells on them to test his suspicions about the Lord. The next day, Matthias receives word from the king's messenger to meet at a particular spot in the dungeons. When they make contact, the messenger hands him the king's letter giving his party the authority to arrest the Lord on behalf of the king. Thanks to the tracking spells, he pinpoints the Lord's location in a house tucked away on the city's outskirts. The five of them arrive at the house to see no guards outside. Matthias detects many goons waiting for them inside the house, though. They barge right in through the main door and are met with many spells hurled at them, but Lurie blocks them all with a shield. Next, Matthias takes them all down with just one spell. He detects the Lord's signatures down in the basement and finds its secret entrance. More goons come out from their hiding places to ambush them in the basement, but Matthias defeats them in one fell sweep again. The Lord tries to resist arrest, but Matthias simply makes him unconscious with a snap of his fingers and gives him to the messenger to take back to the kingdom. He finds the remains of a letter with traces of magic, conveying that the demons had found the dragon vein in the city's dungeons. This spells bad news because the right enchantment on the vein can cause a world calamity. Suddenly, they feel tremors in the basement, meaning the demons are already using the dragon vein to summon a horde of monsters. They have 2 hours until the monsters come and ravage the city, before which they have to defeat the demons controlling the dragon vein pillar. They enter the dungeons to access the demon vein. They detect demon magical signatures on the vein, indicating that they have tampered with it in some way to make it do their bidding. He assigns Lurie to nullify their magic with her enchantment, while Alma and Iris keep monsters away from Lurie in the city, and he goes further down to face the demons. They are in constant telepathic communication throughout. With 1 hour left until the monsters arrive, Lurie traces the demonic magical flow and starts trying to counteract, and Matthias comes across a single demon. He taps into the demon's telepathic spell and realizes there's some demon higher up giving him all the orders. He starts the attack with a simple sword slash, but the demon blocks it with a barrier that explodes on contact. He can tell that he's facing a demon much stronger than the ones he's dealt with so far in this life. The voice tells the demon to use ranged spells against him because his crest is specialized for close combat. He telepathically tells Lurie to prepare 2 casting circles for him. At the same time, the demon sends multiple ranged attacks that he has no choice but to defend against, still keeping him away from the demon. Once Lurie prepares the casting circles, Matthias starts running toward the demon. He tells her to activate the circles, which end up nullifying all the trap spells laid by the demon, and also cuts off the communication spell that the demon was using to listen to the higher-up's voice. He then throws a continuous line of spells at the demon's barrier, taking advantage of the barrier explosion's reset time to attack with his sword before its cooldown is over. This destroys the barrier. The communication spell is reactivated after that. Matthias hears the higher-up speculating if he is Gaius Reincarnation, meaning the higher-up must be an ancient demon to know of Gaius. The master tells the demon to use his last resort, Disfortune. Despite his transformation, Matthias is unbeatable and eventually beheads the demon. Lurie also successfully neutralizes all the demonic tampering in the dragon Veen, which leads to the disappearance of the monsters attacking the city. All that's left is to figure out who the higher-up is, a challenge on another level than the ones Matthias and his party have gone through so far. Matthias records the magical signature the demon's communication spell left behind in a Magistone. When the party sits down to rest, he explains that an ancient device exists that can read the Magistone and determine the location of the master demon. The device is located in the present-day Redenia Alliance across the kingdom's border. Matthias decides it would be easiest to cross the border with the king's help, so they decide to return to the capital. They arrive at the second Academy campus to find that it is undergoing complete reconstruction by the efforts of both Academy's students. Matthias informs the headmaster of their intent to cross the border and asks if the king will help them. The headmaster says he will relay the message to His Majesty and request him to get Redenia Alliance's guild's cooperation to ensure things go smoothly. The party offers to help with the construction until they get the green light to cross the boundary. A few days later, they get a written permit from the king and set off to Redenia Alliance. Of course, this wasn't their only obstacle to get to the device. The city has marked the area where the device is as a restricted region only A-rank adventurers from their guild are authorized to access. They arrive at Redenia's guild to be greeted by an adventurer who is expecting them from the king's message. He says that all of them must pass the A-rank test, which is a mock fight with a proctor before going to the restricted region. At that moment, Giluas, a famous S-rank adventurer of Redenia, enters and says he will be the proctor of the exam. He passes Iris, Alma, and Lurie without fighting them, but insists to have a duel with Matthias. He wants to face this kid who's become known as a demon slayer. Before the duel begins, Giluas claims he doesn't use any magic to fight, but Matthias can if he wants to. However, once they start fighting, Matthias realizes that Giluas casts enchantments on his body and sword unconsciously, an impressive ability that most people can't do. The two are evenly matched in terms of swordsmanship, so Matthias spices things up by using magic. Faced with a formidable opponent for the first time in his life, Giluas also uses the same magic technique as Matthias to stay on even footing. However, due to his inexperience in casting, Matthias bests him and forces him to accept defeat. Once the duel's over, Giluas asks how he can get as strong as Matthias. Matthias gives him the book he wrote on casting spells to help him improve in combat magic. Giluas looks down on magic because he thinks all spells can only be cast by reciting chants, leaving the caster vulnerable. However, Matthias points out that wordless magic doesn't have that weakness and that Giluas, in fact, uses it without realizing it. Giluas sets his mind on improving in combat magic. With their A-rank certification, the party departs for the restricted Folkia region. They come across a checkpoint where the guards give them passes to access the area. However, Matthias detects a tracking spell and a demon code message on the pass that says they're a threat that must be dealt with immediately. They suspect the entire Folkia region must now be controlled by demons. Sure enough, a large group of bandits can be seen waiting to ambush them in the distance. Matthias gives Lurie and Alma a sleeping potion to sneakily put the bandits to sleep while he and Iris distract them. The plan works, but Lurie and Alma also fall asleep after exposure to the gas. After waking them up, they make their way to Folkia City. Lurie and Matthias detect over 30 unique magical signatures. This is very bad news because it means Folkia is overrun by demi-demons, a special class of demons that can't use any special spells but work together in groups using a shared consciousness. Instead of walking in directly, Matthias uncovers a hidden passage probably used by the demi-demons to infiltrate the city center. All the townspeople look like zombies, walking around aimlessly with a blind gaze like they're in some sort of trance. They find a long line in front of a factory where a demon is casting a thought paralysis spell on the townspeople to subjugate them into mindlessly working in the factory. Matthias casts a counterspell on him and the girls so they can pretend to be under the thought paralysis and enter the factory to investigate. What they find inside is worrying, to say the least. The humans are being used to refine rankine magical ore, a type of mineral that can be used to make explosives. 1 ton of pure rankine can eliminate an entire kingdom. Of course, they can't let this go on, so they plot a strategy to take the demi-demons down, taking advantage of their shared consciousness and teamwork. Matthias unmasks Iris' massive magical signature, alerting the demons and forcing several of them to come and investigate the threat. As they approach the spot, Matthias, Alma, and Lurie strike them all down. The demi-demons' shared consciousness goes into a frenzy as over half of their forces are wiped out. Finally, the leader of the demi-demons comes down to check out the scene. He commands the remaining demons to gather in one location and decides to use their rankine explosives to take the enemy out. However, his plan is foiled when two of his demons are killed right in front of him. Fortunately, Gilles had decided to visit Fulkia and lend a helping hand. He and the leader meet blades while Iris and Matthias cut down the other demi-demons. With the help of new wordless spells that he picked up from Matthias' book, Gilles pushes the demi-demon to his limit and defeats him by a hair. However, the demi-demon leader's eyes suddenly glow red and he gets back up and charges at Matthias. Matthias blocks it, and the same voice he heard commanding the demon in the Melkia dungeon speaks from the demi-demon's mouth. The voice threatens to come after Matthias once he destroys the seal and revives completely. After that, the demi-demon's body disintegrates. The people that were under the thought paralysis spell regain consciousness and are very confused. As a high-ranking adventurer, Gilles assumes temporary emergency control over Fulkia until it returns to normal. The party part ways with him, with Matthias looking forward to seeing how much he grows in strength when they meet again. They finally make it to the area of the device. Matthias almost lets it slip that he was the one who made the device as Joss thousands of years ago. The device is under a pyramid-like structure that can only be opened by enchanting it with a particular spell. Matthias unlocks it, prompting the pyramid to elevate and reveal an underground passage they must enter. Inside, they see the ancient device still preserved in pristine condition. While Matthias prepares it for activation, the others look around the ruin for valuable artifacts. But he is mortified to see them only find cringy weapons that Gaius had made for fun. Once the device is ready, Matthias uses it to analyze even the weakest of magical signatures on the Magistone. It is revealed that the demon behind all this is Zardius, a demon so powerful that even the mages back in Gaius' time couldn't eliminate him, and he had to be magically sealed away. Oh, and the seal is almost broken. They have no chance of defeating him at their current level. As a last-ditch effort, Matthias makes the device analyze one of the cringy weapon's signatures to pinpoint the location of another powerful sword Gaius has made. Luckily, the sword is collecting dust in the capital's treasury. They speed off toward the capital on Iris dragon form. On the way, they all feel a massive magical signature, meaning Zardius has completely broken the seal and is following them. Matthias gives Luri and Alma 2 Magistones to go and look for the sword in the treasury while Matthias holds Zardius off. Zardius arrives over the capital through a portal. Iris unleashes a giant blast through her dragon breath spell, but it doesn't land a scratch on Zardius. Matthias is overwhelmed by the demon's power and fails to dodge one of his attacks. Zardius reveals that he has resurrected the demons they killed in the capital way back. Meanwhile, Alma and Luri make it to the treasury but aren't granted access without the king's permission. They are surrounded by guards, but the king luckily walks in and commands the guards to stand back and open the treasury for them. They eventually find the sword and try to get it to Matthias quickly, but they run into the weaker demon they had defeated earlier within the capital. However, their skills have improved manifold since they left the capital, and they down the demon down easily. The stronger demon enters the scene with 2 Second Academy classmates as hostages to blackmail the girls into giving him the sword. The girls submit and lower their weapons. Matthias, who has almost run out of magical energy, contemplates if he should use the last of his power to reincarnate again in the next era, when Zardius' power will have weakened at least a little. However, he can't bear the thought of leaving his friends behind to perish along with the current civilization. With renewed zeal, Matthias uses up his life energy to increase his magical power to hold out until he gets the sword. At the same time, the demon down below is about to take the sword from Alma and Luri, when a bunch of Second Academy students comes to their rescue. The girls finally throw the sword at Matthias. However, as soon as he turns his back to grab it, Zardius stabs him through the heart, killing him. Little does he know the requirement for the sword's activation is the wielder's death. Once activated, the sword revives the wielder and infuses them with tremendous magical energy. With all this newly gained power, Matthias delivers a lethal blow to Zardius, turning him into ash. Finally, the world-ending crisis is over and peace returns to humans all over the world. Alma, Luri, Iris, and Matthias have a joyful reunion. Having completely exhausted his magical energy, Matthias returns to Second Academy as a student until his energy is replenished. For their miraculous deeds, the king generously rewards them with everything they want. For Iris, that's a whole lot of food. Matthias gives Luri a beautiful pendant he makes out of ores he buys from a shop. He spends the rest of his reincarnated life leveling up his crest of close combat and going on many adventures with his amazing party to become the strongest sage of this era. That's it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for part 2 and watch this next video on screen.